Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something I know you're really interested in understanding better, pre-diabetes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack.
Uh,
You've given me a lot of great material. There's this article, Stop Pre-Diabetes in Its Tracks. Act Now Before It's Too Late.
mhm.
It's by Dawud Osborne, who's a health and wellness coach. And you've also included some notes about your health goals and concerns.
Right.
So let's just dive into all this and see what we can uncover together. I have to admit, that title, Stop Before It's Too
Okay.
Late, yikes. It definitely grabbed my attention. What do you think?
It certainly conveys a sense of urgency, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
The language suggests that prediabetes is a serious condition
Yeah.
with potentially significant consequences if not addressed.
Right. Okay.
That's something we should definitely explore further.
Absolutely. And you mentioned in your notes that you've been feeling a bit more tired than usual lately. So I think understanding what prediabetes actually
Hmm.
is a great place to start. I noticed Osborne uses a cliff analogy to describe it.
Right.
What do you make of that?
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Imagine yourself standing close to the edge of a cliff. Prediabetes is like that warning sign telling you to step back.
Oh, okay.
It means your blood sugar levels are higher than normal,
Yeah.
but not yet high enough to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
It's your body signaling that things are heading in the wrong direction, and it's time to make some changes before you go over the edge, so to speak.
Okay, that's a great way to visualize it. So it's like a kind of in-between state,
Yes.
a warning sign before potentially developing type 2 diabetes.
Absolutely.
Okay. But what's happening on a cellular level, what's going on in the body that leads to this pre-diabetic state?
Well, at the core of it is insulin, a hormone that acts like a key, unlocking your cells so glucose from the foods you eat can enter and be used for energy.
Okay.
Now, with prediabetes, your body starts developing insulin resistance.
Uh-huh.
Think of it like the lock on your cells getting rusty. It's harder for the insulin key to work. The pancreas, which produces insulin, tries to compensate by churning out more and more, but eventually it can't keep up.
Okay.
This leads to a buildup of glucose in the bloodstream, hence the higher than normal blood sugar levels.
So the body's natural mechanism for regulating blood sugar is starting to falter?
That's right.
Okay, that makes sense. But what does that actually feel like?
Right.
What are some signs someone might be experiencing pre-diabetes? Because you mentioned feeling tired.
You're right. Prediabetes can be a bit sneaky because the symptoms can be subtle
Yeah.
and easily attributed to other things like stress or a busy lifestyle.
Okay.
Osborne mentions increased fatigue, slow healing of cuts and bruises, weight gain, especially around the belly, and even an increased thirst. He also points out that prediabetes can increase the risk of heart disease, which is concerning.
Wow, so these are things many people experience anyway, right?
Absolutely.
How would someone know it's something more serious, like prediabetes, rather than just needing a good night's sleep?
That's a really important point. These symptoms can be common for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
But let's consider your situation. You mentioned in your notes that you have a family history of diabetes.
Right.
And you've noticed some of these symptoms yourself. That, coupled with your desire to understand prediabetes better, suggests it's worth investigating further. What do you think?
I think you're right. It's definitely better to be safe than sorry.
I agree.
So let's say someone is experiencing these warning signs and suspects they might have prediabetes. What happens if they ignore it? Osborne's article talks about prediabetes progressing to full-blown type 2 diabetes.
Right.
How does that transition actually occur?
Essentially, as insulin resistance worsens, the pancreas gets increasingly overworked,
Yeah.
trying to produce enough insulin to keep up.
Okay.
But eventually, it starts to lose the battle. The beta cells in the pancreas, responsible for insulin production, become exhausted and simply can't meet the demand.
Okay.
As a result, blood sugar levels continue to rise, eventually crossing that threshold into type 2 diabetes.
So it's like the pancreas is waving a white flag saying, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And how quickly does this progression from pre-diabetes to type 2 diabetes happen? Is it a gradual thing or can it happen fairly rapidly?
That's where things get a bit tricky. The speed of progression varies depending on individual factors, genetics, lifestyle choices, overall health.
Okay.
For some people, it might take years. For others, it could be much faster. The important takeaway here is that without intervention, without heeding those warning signs, type 2 diabetes becomes a likely outcome.
Okay.
It's not about scaring anyone, but understanding the potential consequences is crucial.
That's a good point. I think it's natural to feel a bit concerned when we start talking about a condition that can have serious consequences. But I'm also curious, what are those consequences? Osborne doesn't shy away from the impacts of type 2 diabetes. He breaks it down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term effects. What are some of those short-term effects that someone newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes might experience?
Well, think about it this way. The short-term effects are often the body's immediate reactions to having too much sugar in the bloodstream. Frequent urination is a common one. Your body is trying to flush out that excess glucose. You might also feel excessively thirsty because you're losing fluids through all that urination. And even blurred vision can occur when high blood sugar levels affect the fluid balance in your eyes.
So those initial effects, while unpleasant, are almost like the body's way of trying to deal with the excess glucose.
Right.
But I imagine things can become more serious over time. What are some of those medium-term effects Osborne talks about?
Exactly. As time goes on and high blood sugar persists, we start to see the impact on different parts of the body. Fatigue becomes more pronounced because the cells aren't getting the energy they need from glucose effectively. There's also a greater susceptibility to infections as high blood sugar can impair the immune system's ability to fight off bugs. You mentioned in your notes that you've been getting more colds than usual lately, so that's something to keep in mind.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even connected those dots. I guess it's easy to overlook those seemingly small things when you're busy with life.
It really is, and that's why it's important to pay attention to those subtle signals your body is sending. Osborne also highlights tingling or numbness in the hands and feet as another medium-term effect. It's often an early indication of nerve damage, a condition called neuropathy.
Neuropathy. That sounds serious. You mentioned that you've been experiencing some tingling in your feet, right? Could that be related?
It's certainly possible. Neuropathy occurs when high blood sugar levels damage the small blood vessels that supply nutrients and oxygen to nerves, particularly in the extremities. Osborne describes it as a feeling of pins and needles, numbness, or even burning pain. In the early stages, it might be intermittent, but if left unmanaged, it can become persistent and debilitating.
That's a bit unnerving, to be honest. I'm starting to see how these seemingly separate symptoms could actually be connected to a bigger issue.
It's all about recognizing those patterns. And it's a good reminder that even those seemingly minor symptoms are worth paying attention to and discussing with your doctor.
Absolutely. It's definitely not something to ignore. And speaking of things not to ignore, Osborne gets even more serious when he talks about the long-term effects of type 2 diabetes. It's where those initial warning signs, if left unchecked, can really have a significant impact.
Unfortunately, that's true. Over time, persistently high blood sugar levels can damage blood vessels and nerves throughout the body, leading to a whole host of complications.
Like what? What are some of the most concerning long-term effects we need to be aware of?
One of the most worrisome is retinopathy, which is damage to the blood vessels in the eyes. It can lead to vision problems, and in severe cases, even blindness. Considering how much you value your active lifestyle and being outdoors, this is definitely something to be mindful of.
That's a stark reminder of how high blood sugar can affect even the most delicate parts of the body. And I know it doesn't stop there. What are some other potential long-term consequences?
Another major one is peripheral neuropathy, which we touched on earlier. This is where nerve damage affects the extremities, primarily the hands and feet, causing numbness, tingling, pain, and even loss of sensation.
So going back to the tingling in your feet, it could be a sign of something happening right now, but it could also be a warning sign of something more serious down the line.
Precisely. And the scary thing about neuropathy is that it can increase the risk of injuries. If you can't feel cuts or sores on your feet, they might go unnoticed and become infected, which can lead to serious complications.
Wow. I'm starting to understand how all these pieces fit together. High blood sugar damages the nerves, which can lead to numbness, and then even small injuries can become big problems because you don't feel them.
That's the unfortunate cascade of events that can occur. And it highlights how important it is to manage blood sugar levels early on to prevent or slow down the progression of these complications.
Okay, so we've talked about vision problems and nerve damage. What else does Osborne mention?
Well, high blood sugar can also significantly damage the kidneys. The tiny blood vessels in the kidneys are responsible for filtering waste products from the blood. Over time, high blood sugar can essentially clog them up, leading to kidney failure. This is a serious condition that often requires dialysis or even a kidney transplant.
Wow. It's really sobering to think about how something like high blood sugar, which might not seem like a big deal at first, can have such a profound impact on so many different organs in the body.
It really does underscore the importance of early intervention and taking steps to manage blood sugar levels before those long-term consequences set in. Remember, prediabetes is a warning sign, but it's also an opportunity to change course.
That's a good point to remember amidst all this heavy information. Okay, so we've got potential vision loss, nerve damage, kidney failure, and I know there's more. Osborne also mentions a link between type 2 diabetes and amputation. That sounds incredibly scary.
It is a serious concern because high blood sugar impairs circulation and wound healing. Even minor cuts or sores on the feet, especially if they go unnoticed due to neuropathy, can become serious infections that don't heal properly. This can lead to the need for amputation, most often of the toes, feet, or even lower legs.
That's incredibly serious. And I remember Osborne mentioning that type 2 diabetes not only reduces your quality of life, but can also shorten your lifespan. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Of course, type 2 diabetes significantly increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks and strokes. This is because high blood sugar damages blood vessels, making them more prone to hardening and narrowing, which restricts blood flow. It's a major reason why heart disease is one of the leading causes of death among people with diabetes.
It sounds like a vicious cycle almost. High blood sugar damages the blood vessels, which increases the risk of heart problems, which can then lead to even more complications.
Exactly. It's a complex interplay of factors, but the takeaway is clear. Managing blood sugar levels is essential for protecting your overall health and well-being in the long run.
This has been a lot to take in, and I have to admit, it's a bit overwhelming. But before we spiral into despair, I want to shift gears and focus on what Osborne calls the silver lining, the fact that prediabetes is reversible. He doesn't just paint a doom and gloom picture, he offers hope.
That's right, and that's the crucial message here. Prediabetes is not a life sentence. It's a wake-up call, an opportunity to take control of your health and make changes that can prevent or significantly delay the progression to type 2 diabetes.
And that's what I think is so powerful about this whole discussion. Yes, it's important to understand the seriousness of the condition, but it's equally important to realize that we have the power to change our course. So let's dive into those actionable steps. Osborne talks about 5 key areas: eating better, moving more, losing weight, monitoring your health, and sleeping well. Let's break each of these down, starting with eating better. What exactly does Osborne mean by focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, and how does that apply to you and your dietary preferences?
All unprocessed foods are essentially foods that are as close to their natural state as possible. Think fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. You mentioned in your notes that you enjoy Mediterranean cuisine. This dietary approach already incorporates many of these elements. Perhaps it's about emphasizing those aspects even more. Instead of white rice, opt for quinoa or bulgur wheat. Instead of processed snacks, reach for a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit.
Okay, so it's about making conscious choices to prioritize those nutrient-rich foods over the processed stuff. What about moving more? You've shared that you have a demanding work schedule. How can someone realistically incorporate more activity into their day?
You're absolutely right. Finding time to exercise can be a challenge, but it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Osborne suggests aiming for at least 30 minutes of moderate-intensity activity most days of the week. He specifically recommends walking, which is something you can easily incorporate into your routine. Perhaps take a brisk walk during your lunch break, or walk to work a couple of days a week instead of driving.
I love how you're tailoring those recommendations to the listener's specific situation. It makes those suggestions so much more practical and achievable. Okay, moving on to losing weight. Osborne suggests that shedding even 5–10% of your body weight can have a significant impact on insulin sensitivity. Is that a realistic goal for someone with prediabetes, especially given the challenges of a busy lifestyle?
Absolutely. Even small amounts of weight loss can make a big difference. Losing just 5–10% of your body weight can lead to significant improvements in insulin sensitivity, lower your blood pressure, and reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And remember, it's not about crash dieting or drastic measures. It's about making sustainable changes to your eating habits and activity levels that you can maintain over time.
That's really encouraging. It feels much less daunting when you frame it as a gradual shift rather than a complete overhaul. So it's not about deprivation, it's about making healthier choices that work for you and your lifestyle. What about monitoring your health? What does Osborne suggest in terms of keeping track of progress and staying on top of things?
Regular checkups with your doctor and getting your blood sugar levels tested regularly are crucial. This allows you to track your progress, catch any potential issues early on, and adjust your treatment plan if necessary. It's really about staying proactive and informed about your health status. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your own body and how it responds to different foods and activities, the better equipped you'll be to make healthy choices.
That makes so much sense. It's like becoming the CEO of your own health, right? You're gathering the data, analyzing the trends, and making informed decisions based on that information. And finally, we have sleeping well. I know sleep is essential for overall health, but how does it specifically relate to managing blood sugar and preventing prediabetes from progressing? You mentioned earlier that you've been struggling to get enough sleep lately, so I'm curious about this myself.
Sleep plays a vital role in regulating hormones, including those involved in blood sugar control. When you don't get enough sleep, your body produces more of the stress hormone cortisol, which can lead to increased insulin resistance. Lack of sleep can also disrupt the production of other hormones that regulate appetite and metabolism, making it harder to maintain a healthy weight and manage blood sugar levels.
So even if you're doing everything else right, eating well, exercising, managing stress, if you're not prioritizing sleep, you're still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. It's all interconnected. Making these lifestyle changes, eating better, moving more, managing weight, monitoring your health, and prioritizing sleep can have a powerful synergistic effect in reversing prediabetes and regaining control of your health. And based on the material you've shared, it seems like you're already making progress in many of these areas. It's just about fine-tuning those habits and adding in a few more tools to your toolbox.
That's a great point. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about building upon the foundation you've already established. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. We've explored the science behind prediabetes, the potential consequences if left unmanaged, and most importantly, the concrete steps you can take to reverse it and regain control of your health. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, to be honest, from feeling concerned to feeling empowered. What a journey.
It's a journey worth taking, and remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are countless resources available from your doctor and healthcare providers to online communities and support groups. Osborne himself offers personalized coaching and support to help people make lasting lifestyle changes.
And that's what I think is so powerful about this whole conversation. We've gone beyond the basic information and provided actionable insights specific to your situation that you can implement right away. Remember, prediabetes is a wake-up call, but it's also an opportunity for a fresh start.
If I could leave you with one final thought, it would be this. Take action today. Don't wait for a more convenient time or for the symptoms to worsen. Small, consistent steps taken today can have a profound impact on your health and well-being tomorrow. Knowledge is power, but action is transformation.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into prediabetes. We hope you found it informative, empowering, and maybe even a little bit life-changing. Until next time, stay curious, stay proactive, and take good care.